Hey guys, Chris here with Work to Game, and today I'm here with my brother Adam, and we are going to talk a little bit about list building. So you have got your army, you've got your book, you bought some units, and you're not really sure kind of what units you can bring, when you can bring them, and there's a couple of really basic things. And so the first is you're going to have to decide if you're playing with power level or points. But then after that, you go through the detachments and all that if you're doing this bound. But really, you kind of have to think about priorities, and this is where it comes into like, what do I buy next? So Adam and I play at 2,000 points, and so we both have full 2,000 point armies at this point. So when you look at buying something additional, and you already own 2,000 points that is a valid deployment, how do you decide what you're looking for?
Well, first it goes with list building. You're trying to figure out what you want your army to do. So if in the 2,000 points, like say you've played a few games with it, and now you're trying to figure out essentially next what you need to do differently. So an example is my army right now has a lot of weak infantry killing. Like it can mow down horde. And then it has a little bit of tank popping stuff with the commanders, because I play Tau. But I'm really lacking mid-range. So, for example, Marines and stuff that have good saves and that you need a moderate armor penetration to get through, I just really suffer there. My infantry does almost no damage to them and they just get mowed down. So the next thing I would look for is a unit with moderate AP. An example for Tau would be maybe Vespid Stingwings, or get another commander, but load him out with maybe cyclic ion blasters instead of fusion blaster.
So when you first start playing, you're probably proxying a lot of things. You don't necessarily want to just go out and buy a lot of models, especially if you're on a limited budget, because you don't know that you're going to buy the right thing. It's cool to buy this coolest looking model, but you may find out, like Adam was saying, that there ends up being a really hard counter in that, and that's going to be based a lot on who you play. We end up mostly playing our other brother Todd and a couple of friends. So we end up playing the same kind of 4 or 5 armies over and over. So part of that's based on what they bring. So if he ends up bringing, right now, it's best for me to buy more of the Marines. And so I have been pushing slowly more and more towards those Marines, because I found that for some reason Adam can't kill them. And so as he moves towards those Vespids, it's a little bit of a rock, paper, scissors. And so I think you made a good point about deciding how you want your army to play, and that really translates into having a battle plan. So a big part of list building is having a plan. In your head, how does the game go? If you assume for every D6 that you hit 3.5 times, if you assume for every 4 up that you hit half the time, and you run the statistics, how much do they get to move? How much do they get to shoot? How many shots go out? What's the average armor saves you're coming up against on their set targets? And so what is the statistical outcome as you're planning that? But I don't think you have to be like a math genius to figure this out, right? I mean,
no, they made it a lot easier. You really just have to do a couple simple calculations, really. Like, what you want to do is, there's a couple ways to remove hits and like prevent your stuff from getting through. So you kind of want to take baseline, I guess, toughness levels and for troops. So you want to compare it against. So if you wanted to kill infantry, you want to do toughness 3 or 4, what they're shooting at, and then an armor save, if it's infantry, usually 5 plus.
Marines are 3 plus. So if you find you're targeting a lot of Marines, that's what makes them so hard.
That's where the mid range comes into an issue. Yeah, so like 5 plus, and then you can do quick math, because the way they changed it to 8th edition. It's really simple. You just have to do whether you're equal to them, lower, greater, half, or double. And those are the only things you have to worry about for your strength versus their toughness.
So much easier.
That's basically what you're kind of comparing. And you just run the numbers real quick on average, because you can, like Chris was saying, you can do 3.5 is the average for a D6. So... and then you just do percentage loss. So it's about 16.7% per, it's 1/6, right? So you just run the numbers based on whether you're hitting on a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 up, and then
So
it's going to be the similar numbers, and you just kind of run it through.
So one of the concepts that I see people do, especially with point-based armies, is each unit is responsible for earning its points. So if I bring a squad that's 180, or if I bring a squad that's 360, that's how many points they have to score for me. But since the majority of games have objectives on the table when you start to get into matched play, there's sometimes strategic value. So how do you decide if what you brought, so you're talking about adding some Vespid Stingers to better slay my army, but that means you're going to have to drop something. How do you decide what to drop? So we're assuming here that you've tried a list. You made your best attempt blind, and then you're going to adjust from here, because I think building a list in a vacuum is almost impossible. I would just try getting 2,000 points together, and you may be way off. You may lose terribly. But how do you decide what to drop as you start to point that more towards something that you play well?
Well, so I figure out what stuff's not doing its job. So that's really it. So the last couple games, I found out I have far too much infantry, and I've got these transports that, while they're keeping the infantry alive for the first turn or so, they're not doing much after that. So they're basically dead weight.
I just ignore
for
them.
one turn. Yeah.
They put almost no shots. There's no reason to shoot them. They can just go.
They
They don't bother me at all.
And they're so bulky, and they only move a little bit, so it's hard to get them in front of stuff to force someone to fire at them. So
How many points are they?
Turns out they're 127 total. So they're a decent amount of points too. So
he has 3 of them. So in a 2,000 point army, he has over 10% of his points sitting in something that only provides strategic value the first turn.
That's what I found out. I tried to go heavy infantry to make it more mechanized, but I'm finding out the battle suits are really good for Tau, especially commanders. So the thing that I see with them versus most other units that Tau has is they get a 2-up hit, so an 87% chance to hit. And then Tau also have these marker lights, which in one roll, one hit on a unit that you're shooting at, you get to reroll the ones. So you're getting a massive chance,
Right. A 2-up, and then if you get a 1, you get to try again, is almost a guarantee.
Yeah.
I don't know what that total percent chance is, but it's basically always.
More times than not, you're hitting everything. So then those guys are really good, and they're so versatile because you can equip them with any type of weapon. So they just get 4 of it.
Okay, so what I'm now hearing is I want to replace them with things that have a lot more killing power. And so I have a guy. So I have
mobility.
So I have guys in my army that are like 600 points, but they have all these guns. So shouldn't I just bring like 2 or 3 guys that are like 600 points?
It depends. So you could, because those guys can mow down a lot of big, medium to big stuff typically, because a lot of their stuff's going to be 2 to 3 AP, and they're decent hits.
I mean, nothing's going to kill them, right? I'll probably finish the game with my guys all on the table.
The thing with that, though, is you now need, even if they're like 600 points, so 1,200 points, now you need to fill up with stuff that helps them survive.
Okay.
So that's where you go in the infantry. Like, it's good to have a decent amount of infantry, or in Tau's case, drones.
Right.
You want to kind of insulate. So if the opponent has a lot of melee, for example, you need to push your guys forward so that they cannot ever get in hitting distance of any of your big stuff. That's just laying out the fire. Because melee tends to have a lot of AP and actually really high strength. There's a lot of modifiers that give it like 2 times the strength value on the unit, and then they usually have -2 or 3 AP, and they're getting like 6 or 7 attacks at like 2 damage. So you need
some bubble wrap.
Yeah, that's the term that people use now, is bubble wrap, because it
cheap
pops,
little stuff.
It pops first, and it's cheap, and it keeps it safe. So it's good to have that kind of stuff. And so, for example, your army, I think, has a really different way of bubble wrapping, but it's also really good.
Right.
So you should explain.
I run with zombies in front. I run Death Guard, is what I'm currently on. I was running Khorne for a while. I've changed gods recently. And so now that I'm running Death Guard, I have Poxwalkers. They're zombies. So they sit out in front, and they're mindless zombies. They do nothing. But I have the ability to make my Marines that sit behind them not targetable unless you kill the zombies first, and everything else that sits behind them are characters, so they're also not targetable unless you kill the zombies first. So I force you to shoot at the zombies. And then the zombies, while they're not doing anything to you, they have this disgustingly resilient rule where it just makes them extremely hard to kill. And so no matter how hard you hit me, no matter what kind of damage you do, no matter what kind of armor pierce it has on it, I always get to ignore it on a 5-up. And so a third of your damage is getting ignored, and they cost me almost no points. So you can have 600 points worth of stuff shooting into this squad that's maybe 60 points, and it won't kill it. And so the other thing to think about is when you bring those 3 600-point guys, say you are able to bring, that's 1,800 points. Say with 200 points you can get enough bubble wrap that your guys do survive and they avoid melee combat unless they want to be in it, right? It's their call. The other problem is this game is not infinite. So I think a lot of times people get to the end of the game and their goal is just to kill, kill, kill. But the majority of objectives, you want to look at the kind of games you're playing, because in matched play, the majority of games have objectives on the table. And so this is not a game that goes until one army dies. This is a game that goes until turn 5, and then you roll to see if it goes on. And in tournament play, they just remove that roll, and all games go to turn 6. So you have 6 turns. So if my 600-point guy takes 3 turns to get into combat, he now has 3 turns to kill stuff. So if he can put a 180-point infantry squad in front of him on turn 4, and it takes him 2 turns to kill it, now by turn 5, he's only earned me 180 points. So he is at a net negative. Now, in my opinion, there are some units of mine that run at net negatives, like my zombies. My zombies do not kill their own value in points. They are 80 points per squad or less, and they don't ever kill 80 points worth of stuff themselves. But they give my other guys that assist, right? They're my linemen. They sit out in front, and they allow my other guys, who die much easier, to sit in the back and not take damage, right?
Yeah, you almost have to combine them, because the people that they're protecting, they get to put more damage, which is your goal. Because you wouldn't be able to, like, the benefit is, say, instead of taking 2 of those guys for way extra points, it's essentially allowing this guy to fire twice as much because he doesn't die. So, like, if one of them were to die in a turn, and then, you still get to shoot, you would, if you took 2, you could still get a lot of shots out, maybe more, but it's more points.
I would think of it like damage meters. Damage meters in games are sometimes criticized because people only focus on the meter, but they're incredibly valuable when trying to diagnose what went wrong and how to improve. So the way I think about it is my poxwalkers, my zombies, I have 2 groups of them sitting in front of 1 character and 1 squad of plague marines. That's usually the way I run it. And so if I was trying to track, did I earn their points, I would actually see, did that group as a whole earn their points? So if I was going to look at their damage meter, I would say that's like 180 points worth of Marines, 2 maybe 70-point squads of Poxwalkers, which puts me at 250, and then a 150-point character. Okay, so I'm at 400 points. Did that group as a whole do either 400 points worth of damage or score enough points that it actually put me in danger of winning regardless of what dies? Because I've had plenty of games where I lose way more points in guys, but I clinch the victory by 2 or 3 victory points because I was able to sit on an objective and you couldn't get me off of it because my guys don't die that easy. And so rather than engage you, I just sit there and let you shoot at me because the game ends on turn 6 whether or not I would die in the future.
Right.
So I mean, I think that's really where I look with list building, is I try to build a strategy of how I want the game to go, and then I try to think based on my playstyle, and then I try to find guys that I feel most look like that playstyle. So if you want to attack fast, sometimes I might try bikers, but then the bikers not perform as well as I thought they did. So then I'll go back and say, okay, what other fast things do I have, or what slow things could I put in a transport to make them fast? And then you start to kind of learn, be a little flexible with that. And I would try it mostly through proxy. My army tonight was almost entirely proxy for our game this evening.
Right.
Because I don't want to go out and buy $85 units that aren't any good.
Yeah, it is best when changing up a list or even getting new stuff, if you want to kind of buy small amounts at a time. So you want to get the stuff that you're like, okay, I definitely like the look of these units.
Sure.
I will always run them, or most of the time run them. So let me grab these, 15, 20, 30 models or whatever, and start with that, and then kind of, like you're saying, proxy anything else that you want to add to the list, and really see if it's doing what you want it to do, or if you think you can improve your chances of winning with it.
Because you may think you need 3 squads of something, and you actually find out that that's a little bit overkill. You end up with guys to spare. So you may want to drop to 2 squads. So I think that's really a good place to kind of wrap this topic up. That's a good intro to list building, what you should be looking for. Plan a strategy of how you want the game to go in a perfect world. Try to build a list to do that. Play a couple games, preferably against a couple different armies with a couple different opponents with different strategies without changing it, and see how it does, because it might dominate this army, but not this one. And keep in mind, if you're rolling really well or if you're rolling really poorly, don't hold that against the guys. If he always targets my tank, so it always dies turn 1, I like to say, man, my tank really sucks, but that's not my tank's fault, because my tank's never getting to play. And actually, in a way, if he's so scared of my tank that he's shooting it, that is providing a value, because I have to think, well, what is surviving that if I take my tank away, now might get shot
instead? Yeah,
right, because those guns face somewhere, and so I need to be very careful about how I adjust that. So definitely plan your strategy, try your list, and then make adjustments. Don't make mass adjustments. Don't just totally redo your list. Make small, minor adjustments in a direction and keep playing games. More games. I think the vast majority of people that I see struggling to win and struggling to enjoy games and struggling to like their army, the biggest issue is that if you they feel like, well, I've played dozens of hours. Well, if you're new, a game probably takes you 4 hours. So dozens of hours, you might have only played 4 games.
Yeah.
So I don't know that you can really know whether or not your list is working yet.
Right. You just got to give it time. And again, different people. So I played 2 different types of armies, did really well, and then not so well. So, it's just a learning process.
Yep. But, so with that, definitely let us know if there's any list building tips you guys have, if there's anything you'd like to pass off to new players, or if you're a new player, if there's any questions you have or any experience you have that you'd also like to share. We'd love to see that in the comments section. I am going to have next week's video also with Adam here, so we're actually going to film that right now. And so thank you guys so much for hanging out. This has been Chris with Work to Game. And my brother Adam. Hope you guys have a great day, and we'll see you next time.
Hey, Chris, your shirt's pretty looking.
Honestly, it doesn't have Work to Game anywhere on it, but I like to support the channel.
Yeah.
So,
well, you can do that and also have a good looking shirt.
I don't really want that shirt. You think maybe it could be a different shirt? Well, cool. I think I'm going to click on one of the links somewhere around here, and I'm going to go see what we got.
Hello. It's really, really, really good.
You guys have a great day.
Take care.
You probably have a pretty shirt on.